Every successful person got there by going through tough times. Success is a hard-ass teacher who likes to knock you around along that journey. You know, it takes real guts to not give up and keep going. We'll hear stories about failures and how these leaders flip the script to create success. I'm John Schultz. Join me and let's discover how success is never really overnight. Okay, so here we are. Welcome to the John Schultz podcast. As you know, it is about the myth to overnight success. And we have a good friend, terrific guest, Frank Sorrentino, who is the chairman and CEO and founder of ConnectOne Bank, which is an industry-leading commercial bank, and we know it very well, and Frank's the best. So Frank, thanks for coming on.
Great. Thank you for having me, John.
I love your background. It looks good. I got to get one of those. I got to get like a John Schultz podcast thing behind me. Maybe as time goes on. So Frank, thanks for coming. Like I said, and you know, the guests that listen to this show are all people that, you know, want to learn, you know, take all these nuggets and apply it to their own lives. And, you know, what I feel is like when you look at successful people, which you are, it's so scary how you get there, right? And like no one realizes that you're just a human being trying and doing and being every day, right? So I want to go back to, you know, your childhood. Like how would you describe it? What made Frank tick at a very young age? And I know you've always been a really motivated younger person, and I know your grandfather started a construction company, you know, came over. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, when I was a child, I wanted to be an astronaut. So
I love that. Listen, Elon Musk, you might be able to go to space, you know, now where you couldn't.
Yeah, so I'm not an astronaut, but I've always loved flying, all things aeronautical, and I never pursued that category. But you know, it's interesting. You talk about this podcast, talking about how people did it, and there are folks who, from an early age, they know they want to be a doctor, a lawyer, you know, a senator, or whatever. My story is kind of sort of all over the place. And, you know, as you said, I'm from a fourth generation masonry, stone masonry background. You know, when people think about Italians, you know, this is what they think about. People who lay brick and block and, you know, put up stone buildings and pour concrete. And that was there was concrete dust like in the air conditioning system. And you know what the old joke is, right? How you break up an Italian wedding, you yell concrete. And everybody.
There you go. I didn't know that one. That's a good one.
So I learned at a very, very early age, you know, how to lay brick, how to finish concrete. My grandfather was a stonemason, came here in 1922 with nothing but a trowel in his hand, traveled the New York City subways looking for work in all the various boroughs. There were brick buildings being constructed all over. For him to break into that trade, couldn't speak the language, was a very, very difficult task, but he did, became a union bricklayer, was a master. He was a master journeyman, something that I think has lost a little bit of its importance today. He was incredible. He went to work every single day in his suit and his tie, put his coveralls on, you know, and when he left at night, he went home as a gentleman in his suit and his tie. His tools, you could have handed his tool bag over to a surgeon and they could have used his tools. That's how beautiful those tools.
So meticulous, like detail, yeah, right? And really caring, like a major caring for what he was doing.
And truly, you know, a craftsman and a mechanic, you know, when those words, you know, really meant something more than what they are today. Today, you know, you say mechanic and you don't think of a high quality trade. Back then, it was to be a journeyman was really something. And so he became.
Listen, but what we're seeing now is how important everything is. Like with this whole, you know, supply shortage, labor shortage, post-COVID, we're seeing like we took for granted how everything was made, how everything got to us, right? And that's what happens over time when things are easy. You just take it for granted. So
think about the construction industry in 1922. hand labor is everything. If you don't know how to, cut materials and how they function and how they work, you're not building anything. Today, everything's automated. Everything comes in pieces. It comes like a jigsaw puzzle. It's got numbers on it. The whole idea over the last 7,500 years has been to take labor out of the equation. But this was a time when there was a pride in, a tile man or a plumber or, a brick mason or a carpenter. I mean, my God, carpenter, these guys walk the water. My father followed in his father's footsteps, was also a bricklayer, and I learned
Another Frank, right?
age. But my father also had a small masonry business. They did residential masonry on people's homes. We did some foundations for other builders, that kind of thing. And by the time I was in like my teens, 16, 17, 18, I'm like, I'm watching what's going on. And I didn't like the idea of being the subcontractor. I wanted to be the general contractor. And so while I learned all the trades and I could put it up there with the best of them, I was looking at the entrepreneurial aspect of bringing capital to a project, bringing that labor, those subcontractors, that expertise to put something together, the acquisition of materials, bringing it all together on time, delivering a product and actually making a profit. And so I started when I was 18 years old. I started building and started small, with small home additions and very small, sort of small homes. I think it was when I was 19 or 20 is when I first walked into a bank for my first construction loan and started my first project that we were going to fund ourselves. Now we weren't working for somebody. We were going to fund our own project, buy land and develop. So that's where I got started.
Okay. So obviously you started very young, right? Like your family business generations had that work ethic. And obviously, I guess by being around that, you either had no choice, right? Which
that's part of it.
But you also, I find like, they always say, you are the 5 people you hang around with. Obviously, you got that instilled in you. But like, what else do you think you gained in your early life to have the courage? Because it's one thing to say, do this job. And I heard even what you were just talking about, it seems like you like the operational of how things work, right? The operation.
It's interesting. My grandfather, I can still remember him telling us stories of the Great Depression because he went through it. He went through a couple of economic calamities. I think it was the hurricane of 1938 or something in Miami, or I don't remember, in the 30s. There was a very, very bad hurricane. There was a very bad hurricane in the late 30s here in New York. And he came out of the Great Depression where he saw people lose their homes. And so from his perspective, he was incredibly risk averse and he didn't want to risk capital. And if he made dollars, he wanted to put them on the side. So he wasn't willing to take a lot of risk. My father was willing to take more risk. He said, hey, that's an older mindset. The Great Depression's gone. There's great opportunities here and we should do more. And then when I came around, it was like, come on, we've got to figure this out. There's, this is a booming economy or whatever, booming area. There's opportunities here. And I never felt like there was a ceiling for me. Whereas some of the previous, whether it was my father, grandfather, they sort of felt that there was some sort of ceiling over what they could do. I didn't. I just said, okay, I looked up and said, I want to do more and I want to apply what I've learned. I want to bring high quality. I wanted to do things in an honest and straightforward way.
Does your mom have a lot of courage?
Yeah, I would say he did for his time, for what he did. But again, he got to a certain point and that was as far.
No, I said your mom. Did your mom have?
Oh, my mom had to deal with 3 boys. Of course.
That's what I'm saying. Like the courage is coming from somewhere, right? Because obviously you have it. And it seems like you've been an entrepreneur since you're 10 years old in certain respects.
But I was, you said about you are who the 5 people who surround you are. And I was always fortunate to run into people over my development years. And even to this day, people that I wind up hanging around with are always people. I'm never the smartest guy in the room. And I'm always hanging around people who are challenging me to do more. And so whether that was early on, even I can remember starting, my first semester at college, I went to civil engineering school at night. And one of the first professors I ran into just saw the way I dealt with problems and the amount of knowledge that I had because I came out of the construction industry and wanted to talk to me on the side about how to help him in his architecture practice and engineering practice to push projects forward. And I wound up doing work with him. So I always seemed to be surrounded by people who liked me, took a liking to me, I should say, and I was able to leverage those relationships and be able to build something more each time.
Yeah,
and
mentors,
definitely
right?
iterative, right? It's not something that you wake up one day and say, I'm going to do this. There are people who do that, but that's not how it happens.
Well, and for all the younger people on that'll listen to this, what is your feeling on hands-on work? Meaning, you go to college, you take all these courses, you think you know what you want. Maybe if you're going to be a doctor or maybe a lawyer or something that, there is a route or a path. But other than that, like what do you think of like hands-on work? Being there, doing the little things that you need to know in order to actually be able to eventually run something, right? Like a restaurant, washing the dishes all the way up.
I made all three of my kids when I become a fairly, I don't want to say successful, but I was doing well as a general contractor, construction manager, had a lot of construction projects going on, some fairly good sized projects. And as my kids were growing up, I forced them to come spend the summer working in the construction trades. And, I think it teaches a bunch of things. One is just an incredible sense of humility. And the fact that you're going to work with all kinds of people who are potentially less fortunate than you, or, come from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different races. And yet when you're on a construction site, you're all the same. Mud is mud. It doesn't matter who steps in it. You're going to get dirty. It's going to be cold. The adverse conditions are the same for everyone. And so, working right alongside folks who maybe didn't go to college and next to someone who did go to college, yet having to come together and create a team sport, which is what I think a building project is, and then be proud of something you did or something that you helped to create and can point to. I really don't know that there are many things that are more noble than that. And I think it does create a sense of ownership, a sense of, I did that, a sense of, I have skills that I can use for the rest of my life. I have ideas and ways of thinking about things that I'm going to be able to utilize in any facet of what I do going forward. Many of the tools that I use today, some of my team, they're just sick of hearing about, my construction days, but I use a lot of the same thought process around how you put a construction site together and what makes sense in a construction site to how I attack business issues here, even today.
Well, that's how you failed, succeeded. Like, I don't know how you lead without actually doing the job of what you're leading people to do. Like, I think eventually, once you get all that skill set, like you said, in construction, that doesn't mean it can't apply to other industries. But if you don't actually work the detail, the minutia, all the way through a process, I would think it'd be very hard.
I'm a big fan also of the military, and I never served, but I've been a big study, and I really just enamored by some of the, figures that are in the military and how their thought process works. When you think of, you start talking about climbing the ladder here of business and entrepreneurialism, think about climbing the ladder in the military to get to a high office or to get to something as prestigious as like the Navy SEALs or whatever. Just takes a whole different way of thinking. And there's so much we can learn from folks like that. And the two words, that I find I'm always thinking about are follow me, right? The greatest leaders say, follow me. They know how to run. They know how to go through the mud. They've done what they're asking you. They're not asking you to do anything that they haven't done themselves.
Yep, there
and
you go.
And they know it can be done because they've been there. And I think that's a leadership trait that I think is a little bit lost today. We learn a lot from books and we learn a lot from having someone explain things to us. And okay, that works, but there's nothing more interesting to learn from someone who's actually been there and done that. And I think actually in today's economy, I think also one of the things, so on the flip side of that, I think one of the things we're missing in today's economy, you used the word before, is the courage to do things that no one's ever done before.
And listen, that's why overnight success doesn't happen. If you don't get the experience, you can't get what you're saying. That's so important. So, all right. So you have this construction thing, which I love, and it's like years of in the making. Every Frank did a little bit more. I love that. All Franks. And then you get into this insurance business, right? So how did that happen? Was it happenstance? Was it like something that you saw missing? Like why'd you even go there? You're in your lane. So you left your lane.
So they say good luck is the combination of preparation meeting opportunity. And in my construction business, I always thought about efficiency. I always thought about technology. And I'm talking about the 1980s. I had one of the first, IBM XTs. I mean, I thought about how can I run this business with less people, be more accurate, provide better reporting. So I was always focused on efficiencies, technology, being as efficient as we could, creating a good capital base, having liquidity, a lot of preparation in how we thought about our business. And it just so happened I met an individual who owned an insurance agency. We were going to build his house for him. And he needed some capital and he needed some technical expertise to take his business to the next level. And so we invested in that. While we built his house, we also made an investment in his insurance agency. And what drove me to that, he would say, well, why would you even be interested in that? There was one part of the construction business that I'll use this very strong word, that I hated. And it was that I felt like every time I completed a construction project, I was out of business. Like, okay, the prize for doing a great job was thank you very much, you're finished. And now, like, what do you do now? Like, you have to go to the next project.
Right.
And so, but if you didn't get that next project, like, what do you do? So, the construction always had this time envelope that sort of bothered me from a business principles perspective. And I didn't love the idea that construction was very, very much hampered by weather considerations. And so if it didn't, if you had a terrible winter, your project could be hampered by that. And there were so many other businesses out there that I looked at in awe and said, oh my God, they have recurring revenue, they're not affected by the weather, And so here I get this opportunity to invest in an insurance agency, and guess what? It's got recurring revenue. And every day that the mail shows up, somebody's sending a check in for an insurance premium. And so I was attracted to the diversification of an income stream by being able to do that, bringing some technical expertise around how to run a more efficient operation, and bringing technology to a company that was at that time completely paper driven. And so that's how I got my first taste of a financial based company. Not that I didn't run it, but I, as a partner, I helped to steer sort of the ship as to which way we were going to go. In the process of doing that, we set up a premium finance company. So now I got my first taste of finance. And I'm like, this is a more efficient way to use capital rather than tying it up in a construction project with so many different variables that could go wrong. So that's where I got my start.
So everyone listening, what I love about this is Frank didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to be in construction, then I'm going to do insurance. Like, this was all being open to opportunity. But like you said, knowing what wasn't working in a place that you spent a lot of time, right? Like, you don't know what you don't know until you see it in front of your eyes. So I love that. And you weren't afraid. Again, the courage popped up again.
Well, if I had $1 for everyone, and you may hear this a few times today here in this podcast, that said, you're crazy. Why would you do that? I wouldn't have to work another day in my life.
Listen, that the courage it's a theme, which is like what's so cool about you. All right, so here you are. You have this insurance business. Obviously, you're an investor, right? So when does the banking courage come in?
So one of the next clients that I build for happens to be a wealth manager who specializes in community banks. And I'm building his house and we're talking, and he gets me interested in the whole life cycle of community banks. Now, keep in mind, before I met him, the bank that I was with, they had done a stock offering and I invested in it. And that was like watching paint dry. You put your money there and nothing happens. And so he's explaining to me how all these banks work, you know, especially New Jersey and New York, where I had a big population of mutual conversions. There were a lot of de novos going on, new banks being formed, and people would put capital in, and the bank would do well. The bank might get sold, it might merge, it might get acquired, and you would make some good money at some point. Maybe you get dividends. And so between the bank that I invested in, plus meeting this gentleman and he getting me involved in other bank investments, I had a number of them, I started becoming very interested and intrigued by this, what I call the next generation finance company, right? I owned part owner an insurance agency, set up my own premium finance company, which we were learning a lot about how the banking regulations work, and then now I meet this gentleman, and now I'm making these investments in somewhat interesting, an interesting sort of mix of different types of banking institutions. At one time I owned, I don't know, 15, 20 different bank positions, and not big, small, but I'm an avid reader. If I'm involved in something and you send me something, I'm one of the few guys that actually reads it.
Right.
So if you send me something, be careful because I'm going to read it. And so I really got to learn a lot about how these banks operate. And I sort of came to the conclusion, as I have done with many things in my life, this is not so hard. You know, all it takes is someone with some level of passion for it, the ability to raise some capital, and you can, you know, I'm watching these guys start these banks all over, you know, both New Jersey and New York, and I'm making money from it. I'm like, wow, this is a pretty good gig. That wasn't enough for me to want to start a bank. But in 2003, the third time I had been with a bank for my business, that bank had gotten sold. And a new bank came in, and I almost think they had like specific board meetings to target that guy, Frank Sorrentino, and how poorly we're going to treat this guy in the merger. And I say it jokingly, but it was just a poor transition. Client service went out the window. And keep in mind, my construction business at that time is all about client service. I'm a big end custom home builder. I'm doing large scale projects for, you know, some of the most affluent clients in the, you know, in the New York metro market. And so I never really thought of myself as a builder. I thought more of myself as a marriage counselor and a nursery school teacher. The marriage counselors keep husband and wife talking during the process. And nursery school was, you know, getting all the subs and subcontractors to show up on time, deliver their product, you know, be there to do the right thing at the right time, understand the plans, whatever.
Keep the flow.
So it was less about my actual construction capability, but it was more my ability to make people feel good about probably the biggest investment they're making in their lives, and being able to coordinate the 35 or 40 subcontractors and suppliers to deliver this product. And so I'm just sick and tired now of this bank that took over. They just are not treating me well. This was a bank that I had referred an enormous amount of business to. It was right in my market. And the bank that took them over just did not care about me. Now, I don't say they should have, but they certainly didn't have a client-focused aspect to what they do. And that's when I sort of woke up. I can remember it. I was sitting in my backyard one Saturday afternoon. I got a copy. Maybe you remember this magazine, Worth Magazine. They used to send it to everybody. And I look at the cover and it says that, you know, we're going to list the top 10 zip codes in the United States. And lo and behold, number 7 is Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey. I'm like, whoa, what? And like number 3 was Alpine. And somewhere in there was Tenafly. It's like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to start a bank that's going to care about its clients, put the client first, act with a sense of urgency, look to make an impact, and be forward thinking. And that's what we set out to do in 2004. I got my charter on January 15th of 2005, and we opened up the doors.
It's amazing.
And again, I was not on the management team. You know, we hired a management team to run.
Right. No, it's like sort of, if you like look back at any entrepreneur, like Steve Jobs or any of them, most of what they created was something they felt they weren't getting, but they all had the courage like you to actually try to change it, right? You can complain or you can actually step up to the plate and try and fail and see what happens. So here you are now, you got all these things going on. You're still doing construction, still got the insurance agency. Now this bank starts, it's doing well, right? I guess you basically, in 2007, you change in your life happened, right? You were bank chairman, and then
by 2007, we realized that this bank was really taking off like a rocket. I did not love the construction business in 2007 anymore. Little did I know we were headed into the largest, real estate crisis. But not for that reason specifically. It's more. I was from beginning in 2006. I was already slowing down the amount of construction we were doing because I didn't like what we were heading into. Had nothing to do with starting the bank, not starting the bank, or whatever. I just didn't like the market for the type of work that we were doing. And then by 2007, on the other hand, the bank was like knocking it out of the park. And basically, the board came to me and said, "Hey, look, we need a management change here." I sort of brought this up to the board that the way in which the management team thought about the organization was slightly different than what I thought about. And my vision for the company was more entrepreneurial, more, about being right in front of our clients and doing things in a bespoke way. And the management team that was there was thinking more about how they did things for the last 50 years, which was just almost aggravating to me. And this
you're very customer facing. You're listen, even Vernon, right? When he got in, like you're more proactive, and you walk into your branches, you feel this welcome. You can tell everyone's trained, almost like Disney trained, right? Like where we're real people walking in there, right? We're not like a number.
We spend a lot of money on training folks to make everyone in the bank feel important. It doesn't matter if you have $10 or 10 million.
100%.
You're going to get treated exactly the same way. And to me, it's a people business. We're not. Look, I don't want to tell you we're financial geniuses here. We're good thinking about how do we make your life easier in your business. That's what we're here for. We're here to serve you. Most bankers think about the idea that you're going to serve us somehow, that the client is going to kneel before the bank and make some request for what they want. I sort of turned that on its head and said, no. We're the servants. We're the ones who have to go out and show them a better way. We have to, and it's not just doing it better than someone else. I always thought about it in a proactive way, like, let's think about what our clients need before they ask for it. I did the same thing in my construction industry, right? I ran one of the cleanest job sites you can imagine because I expected that when our clients came in, if they saw a mess, they'd start worrying about everything, but also, did they think of everything? Is there something that maybe they missed that we should tell them about? I wanted to be there as an advisor to help them to get through the process with the least amount of aggravation, and have a product that they were truly happy with. And so,
well, you took pride in it. I mean, this goes all the way back to your grandfather, your father, and like how meticulous, you said journeyman, like how meticulous he was in his product. Like he was proud of it, right? So that's definitely rubbed off on you. So then you went from bank chairman and you had to step into a new role here. So that,
so in 2007, the board and I got together and decided, that it was going to be time to make a change. I had difficulty finding somebody. There was an obscure rule at the State Department of Banking level that basically if you wanted to hire a CEO of the bank, they had to be a CEO at another bank or something else like that. And so, make a very long story short, we figured out a way where the board would nominate me to be chairman and CEO, and I would promote somebody to be president, and that would satisfy the regulators, and that would give me the opportunity to help to steer this ship, to keep that entrepreneurial spirit, to keep moving in this forward direction. We were known as a growth company for the first 10 years of our life. We were the fastest growing company in New Jersey, never mind the fastest growing bank. And so that's how we, that we took off at that point. Like I said, the construction industry was really hitting the skids in late 2007. I basically gave up, our interest in that industry at that point and made it a full-time pursuit in the banking industry. We doubled our balance sheet almost every year after I joined the company for I don't know how many years. It was a really
and you took a pay cut
time, and in one of the worst economic recessions he's ever been through.
And you took a pay cut, like
huge pay cut.
Well, you took a pay cut because your conviction was long term. Again, that things don't happen right away, and you're doing something you really, it sounded like you enjoyed, which was terrific. And then you move forward. Now there was North Jersey Community Bank, right? And then here it is, 2007. You take your pay cut. You're doubling your balance sheet. You're using all these skills that like we just learned about on how you grew up to push this bank forward. And then what, you IPO'd in what, 2013, 14?
2013, we did an IPO. As you can imagine, the thought process in 2012, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to be the first bank to IPO after the Great Recession. Again, people said, are you crazy? You can't do that. But we did. We rebranded the company in 2012 to what is now ConnectOne Bank. We did. What's
the story of Connect? How'd you get ConnectOne?
We hired a branding firm and we brought a lot of people together to really try to understand what was the brand. I knew we were going to IPO and we were going to have a national presence. This was going to be a story that the Wall Street Journal was going to pick up because no bank was raising capital in 2012 or 13. They were still trying to fill capital holes from the recession. And North Jersey Community Bank was just a rushed name that we applied to the company because I was rushing to get the charter. And so we really delved into what is it that we do? What do we represent? And there were two concepts that came up. One was a concept of a circle because it's sort of like we're part of this entire business economy, and there's no beginning, no end to where we touch or feel.
Yeah.
And there was also this concept of connection, connecting, because that's what we did the best. We were not only connecting with our clients, but we were connecting clients with other clients to do business together. We were there as advisors. We were helping to put things together, put deals together, help structure things. And so there was this whole idea of connection. And when I heard that, I'm like, that's it. That's who we are. And our branding folks came up with ConnectOne, and it's because we're one company. Yet
I love it. I think that's
everyone, and so that's who we are. If you look at our logo, actually, if you look at the logo that's right behind me, you see there's 4 squares there. I always said that represented a meeting of our clients, so and our bankers. But the light blue square there represents the client. And so to me, that means everything we do in ConnectOne, every meeting we have, we remember that the client has a seat at each of those meetings. I used to go to meetings and people would talk about, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I'm like, if one of our clients sat in this room and heard that, what would they think about that? Oh, no, we can't tell our clients. I'm like, well, if we can't tell our clients, we're not doing it. And so I even use that rule at my board meetings. I'm like, if we're going to discuss something here, how would we feel if one of our clients sat in one of the chairs and they heard everything we do? I need them to be proud of what we're doing. And so it's a constant reminder that we are here for our clients.
And hopefully that's not on a Zoom screen. It's in person, because those boxes.
No, this is a real screen.
No, I'm talking to people. Like, we got to get back together again. We can't always be on a Zoom screen, right? So that's interesting. So you rebranded and then you merged with Center Bancorp, or?
Yeah. So 2014, we had the opportunity to really do something dramatic. We were about $1 billion in assets at that time, and that was the fastest growth rate for any bank in New Jersey to get to $1 billion. And then we had the opportunity to come together with what was, I think, a 95-year-old institution that again needed the technology, the management infrastructure, the way to do it. They had capital, they had deposits, they had a big branch infrastructure. And so we merged with this company that's twice our size. So now we go from $1 billion to $3 billion overnight, rebrand the company back to ConnectOne because they bought us. So Center Bank Corp bought ConnectOne, rebrand the company. So if you look at our corporate history today and you go back before 2014, it's not us, it's the old company. And so I got a new job July 1st of 2014. And so we rebranded the company. It's now ConnectOne Bank Corp, ConnectOne Bank. And we changed the ticker symbol. I think theirs was CNBC back to RCNOB. And we've grown from then to now. We were 3 billion at that time. We're almost 9 billion today.
So if you buy more banks, it could say just connect all and then forget anything else. I love that.
We've had a couple of small acquisitions
Yeah.
in there. We did a small acquisition up in the Greater Hudson region. It was called Greater Hudson Bank. They were about 600 million. And more recently in 2020, we did the Bank of New Jersey transaction, which was pretty much in market in the Eastern Bergen County area. And in 2019, we did something really exciting. We bought a small fintech called Bowfly up in Boston. And that's really helped us to I don't want to say jumpstart, but really push ahead and promote our technology initiatives and how we think about banking and how we think about products and services to a whole different segment with a whole different group of people. So it's been a really positive influence.
Yeah, I mean, we tech, that word tech, it's really innovation because everyone's a tech company now to a certain respect, right? You had to figure out how to navigate through all this stuff. It's been very exciting. And, we'll see how it all lands. I mean, with what's going on today, it's gonna be interesting to see who, it's almost like the .com bubble, like who's gonna last through this and what really mattered, like what really mattered. I've been telling everyone, like the illogical became illogical. Like all of a sudden, like what you thought, how is this happening? Where are we all going? You get a little disoriented, right? Like, sure. Are you thinking clearly anymore? Did you lose a step to not understand?
You know what I've learned though? In all of this, as you said, over the last few years, one of the things that I watched happen that gave, as you can imagine, gave me discomfort was this disconnection between companies and their clients. And this whole technological wave that you've seen over the last couple of years really disintermediated companies and their products from their ultimate clients. And to me, that's a crying shame because people want expertise, they want knowledge, they want to feel good, they want to know somebody's got their back. You walk into a restaurant, yeah, the food might be good, that's table stakes. How do you feel? How do they make you feel? What's the worst thing that can happen to you in a restaurant? You go into the bathroom and it's filthy, right? It says, hey, wait a minute, nobody cares here. So the food could have been great, but your experience is ruined. And so this challenge to producer and client or customer is really been challenged in these last few years. And what's interesting to me is the companies who are genuinely focused on their clients' experiences are the ones that are not only surviving, but they're thriving. They're the ones, what are we going back to? We're going back to people want to shop in stores. People want to touch things. People want to see things. Airline experiences, hotel experiences. Look at what the hotel brands are doing. They're coming out with all different types of brands that are tailored to an experience for you. So people are back in the business now. So now you don't go on hotels.com anymore. Now you want, Marriott Edition or Marriott Autograph, or you want a Starbucks coffee. So people, I think, are gravitating back to what they humanly.
But there's always a pendulum. Listen, to disrupt anything, for it to get any traction, Frank, because like most companies don't even survive past 5 years. I mean, if you're still in business in 10, 15, 20 years, you're pretty awesome. I mean, that doesn't happen if you look at how many go out of business every year. Yeah. So I think pendulums have to swing for traction to occur. People have to believe that that's the total direction you have to go in to get enough people to actually keep that thing sustainable. And then it always goes back. I mean, like you're saying, retail, everyone thought retail was over, but now it's the halo effect, right? They saw the better you did on your digital native product, the more it cost you for a customer acquisition. And then they turn and say, maybe we'll do a combo of retail and that. And now they're finding it's a 30% better margin or 25 or 20 or 10.
Listen, it's the same thing in our business. We could be the greatest people part of the business, client service, call you, email you, all that other stuff. If we don't have the products that are technologically enabled to make your life easier and your business better, you're going to say, yeah, nice guys, we like them, but just can't do business with them. So it's definitely a balance. But if we had the greatest technology platform and you couldn't get anybody on the phone when you have that unique scenario that you guys call us with, then you're going to say, well, okay, the technology doesn't do me any good. I need to talk this out with somebody. I need somebody who's going to help me to make this decision.
Yeah. So it's good. So I think the world's gotten back into, this will force an equilibrium. We don't know what that is yet, but we're going to all learn together. So obviously we're coming to the end of this show here. One thing I want to ask.
We're going to have to do a part B of the show.
Yeah, total part B. I'm into part Bs. I love it. So your journey's long. I mean, it's been a while. What would you tell people, one or two things that you would do maybe differently, or what they should be thinking about when walking through all these different things, that most of the things were, they came your way, you were open and you had the courage. So like, what else would you say?
Listen, I always say opportunity is out there for the taking, and you have to be prepared and ready, and you got to have your eyes open for when it shows up, but you got to be prepared for it. But don't think like, oh, this happened to that person or this, or that's not gonna. There's opportunities out there for everyone. So if you have, you said it, John, if you have the courage and you have the preparation and you're seeking them out, they're going to be there for you. So keep an eye out for those opportunities is number one. Number two, drown out the noise. Don't listen to there's so many naysayers in the world. Like, just think about what you know, make sure you have a good solid grounding. Think about where you want to go, how you're going to get there. And when you see that opportunity, go for it. And I think the times where I feel like I could have done something different or should have done something different is when I didn't follow those two things, that I didn't allow for myself to see the opportunities. And when I allowed the naysayers to sort of influence, and it's easy, right? You pick up the newspaper today. If you pick up the newspaper today, you want to put your head in the sand. You don't want to come out for another 2 years. But me, I'm sitting here going, this is going to be the greatest time ever, these next 2 years.
Well, listen, we're naysaying ourselves half the time, right? So you first got to get over your own stuff. Then you got to let all the other people that have their opinions evaporate. But you've done it. So, all right, ConnectOneBank.com. How do people, if they want to learn more about your bank, what's your website?
Yeah, it's either ConnectOneBank.com or CNOB.com, our ticker symbol. CNOB.
You got bank branches in Jersey. You got them in New York, Florida now. You opened up in Florida, so
we have a national presence with our BowFly brand. If there's anyone that's interested,
BowFly's pretty cool. Everyone should check that out too. And I just want to thank Frank. I know you're busy. I thank you so much. I love podcasts myself, and when I listen to them, and I get like a couple things that let me move on. And I know there's gonna be way more than a couple here, but I'm so happy you spent the time to do this. Much appreciated.
Same here, John. Always great to do it.
All right. Thank you.
Be well.